Good evening. Right now, you don't need to do anything at all. There's no need to get comfortable in a perfect way. No need to prepare your mind. I'm here with you, quietly. You don't need to fall asleep right away. If sleep comes, it will come in its own time. If it doesn't, that's completely okay. You also don't need to listen to everything. Some sounds may drift into the background. Some moments may pass without notice. Nothing important will be lost. You can think of this voice as someone gently keeping watch nearby, not guiding, not pushing, just being present, so you don't have to stay alert. This is a safe place to rest. You're allowed to simply be here, and that is enough. As you remain here, there's no need to change your position. Nothing new is required. The night is already doing most of the work for you. This voice stays close, steady, unhurried. You might begin to notice a sense of weight, not heavy in an uncomfortable way, more like the natural weight of something that no longer needs to be held up, as if your body remembers how to be supported. The surface beneath you is already doing its job. You don't need to assist it. There may be a quiet sense of settling, not all at once, not dramatically, just small areas, one at a time, finding their place. Your feet, perhaps, resting without effort. Your legs, no longer needing to stay ready. Your hands, resting where they are, without instruction. And if any part of you doesn't follow this right away, that's fine. Nothing here needs to synchronize perfectly. You can let the idea of effort soften. Imagine it loosening around the edges, like ice beginning to lose its shape when warmth slowly returns. There's no moment where it suddenly disappears. It just becomes less solid, less defined. Your shoulders may notice this first, or your jaw, or somewhere else entirely. Wherever it begins is exactly right. There's a sense now that gravity is slightly more noticeable, not pulling, not dragging, just present. A gentle reminder that you are allowed to rest downward. Nothing is asking you to stay upright. Nothing is asking you to stay alert. If you were to place a number on this moment, it wouldn't need to be clear. It wouldn't need to count forward in a straight line. You might sense the idea of counting without tracking it. A vague awareness of time passing without keeping score, like hearing distant bells without knowing how many times they rang. Somewhere inside, a quiet rhythm begins, slow, unforced. It doesn't belong to the clock. It belongs to the body, remembering how to slow itself. If thoughts appear, they don't need to be pushed away. They can soften too, like shapes seen through fog. They lose their edges without needing to leave. There may be images that arise, not vivid scenes, more like impressions, a sense of things becoming fluid, as if solid boundaries are less important now. Imagine tension as something that can melt, not disappear, but change its form, like snow turning into water, still present, but no longer rigid. You don't have to imagine this clearly. Even the suggestion is enough. Your body understands metaphors better than instructions. There's a gentle downward movement now, not a fall, more like sinking into warmth. as if the night itself is slightly softer beneath you. You may lose track of where one part of your body ends and another begins. That's natural. The edges aren't important anymore. If there were numbers here, they wouldn't line up neatly. They would drift, a sense of after, and then before, and then neither. You don't need to follow them. They're only passing by. The breath may change on its own, longer, shorter, or barely noticeable at all. There's no need to guide it. The body already knows what rhythm feels safest right now. You might notice pauses between breaths, not something to create, just something that's there when effort steps aside. In these pauses, nothing happens, and that's the point. A feeling of heaviness continues to spread, not pressing, more like being gently held from all sides, supported. If your awareness drifts, that's welcome. If it stays close to the sound of this voice, that's welcome too. There is no correct distance. Images may blur further now, like paint slowly mixing with water, colors losing their sharp lines, everything becoming softer, without needing to fade away completely. This is the state where the mind stops organizing and starts resting, not asleep, not fully awake, just suspended. If counting happens somewhere in the background, it's not meant to be followed. Numbers rise and fall, out of order. They don't lead anywhere. They simply exist and then dissolve. Your body continues to sink into the surface beneath you, as if it trusts that surface. A little more now, as if it remembers that it doesn't need to hold itself together tonight. There is nothing to complete, nothing to reach the end of. This is a widening space, a place where effort becomes unnecessary, where awareness can thin out without disappearing. I'll remain here, keeping this space steady. You don't need to signal anything. You don't need to respond. Just allow this gentle expansion to continue in whatever way it chooses. Time is no longer important here, only this slow unfolding, and you are already inside it. As this gentle drifting continues, there is no clear moment where one place ends and another begins. The sense of melting doesn't stop. It simply opens into something wider. You may begin to notice the feeling of being somewhere, not arriving, not traveling, just realizing that you are already there. This place doesn't announce itself. It doesn't welcome you with signs or instructions. It doesn't tell you what time it is. In fact, there is no time here in the way you might expect. This is Sleepsville, a town that does not stand still, but also does not move forward. It shifts gently, like a thought that never needs to be finished. There are streets here, but they don't rush anywhere. They curve, they wander, they seem to exist, only to be walked slowly, or not walked at all. Houses line these streets, not in straight rows, not in perfect order. Each one rests, as if it chose its place, and then forgot why. Some lights are on, some are dim, some flicker softly, as though they are breathing. The light here never feels sharp. It spreads, it settles, where it's needed, and nowhere else. There are no clocks in Sleepsville, no alarms, no schedules waiting to be followed. Time doesn't pass here. It loosens. Moments stretch until they no longer feel numbered. Night exists, but it doesn't signal an ending. It's simply the most comfortable state for this place to be in. In Sleepsville, there is an unspoken understanding. No one announces it, no one explains it, but everyone seems to know. Here, everyone is allowed to sleep in their own way. Some drift quickly, some stay half awake for long, quiet stretches. Some rest without sleeping at all, and none of it is questioned. No one watches closely. No one measures progress. Sleep is not a task here. It's a personal rhythm, a private language, spoken differently by each body. As you move through Sleepsville, or simply remain where you are, you might notice how sound behaves. Nothing echoes sharply. Everything arrives softly, then fades before it needs attention. Footsteps are muted. Doors close without urgency. Even silence here feels layered, not empty. The buildings seem to listen, not actively, just passively aware, as if they were designed to hold rest inside them. Windows glow gently, not inviting, not distant, just present. Some windows reveal movement, others show only stillness. Both belong here. The streets continue, even when you're not following them. They don't disappear. They simply wait, without expectation. In this town, nothing insists, nothing demands to be noticed. Everything allows. You may sense that Sleepsville changes, depending on who is here. Not dramatically, subtly, like a place that adapts its breathing to match the people inside it. If you feel heavy, the town feels softer. If you feel light, it doesn't try to ground you. It lets you be exactly as you are. The air here has weight, but not pressure. It supports without holding tightly. You might notice how the ground never feels cold. Even stone seems to remember warmth. Nothing startles you here. Nothing pulls you suddenly back into alertness. Even change happens slowly, one moment sliding into the next, without edges. There are no rules written down, but there is one truth that lives quietly throughout Sleepsville. No one is required to sleep the same way. No one is required to sleep at all. Rest is enough. Being here is enough. Some people lie awake, watching the light shift. Some fade in and out of dreams they never fully enter. Some disappear into sleep so gently that even they don't notice. When it happens, all of it belongs. As you remain in Sleepsville, you don't need to explore. You don't need to understand how the town works. It works by not needing to be understood. The streets continue, whether you notice them or not. The houses remain, whether you imagine them clearly or vaguely. The light stays low, always low enough to feel safe. This place does not ask who you are or how long you plan to stay. It doesn't keep records. It doesn't remember in a way that creates pressure. Sleepsville only holds space, quietly, steadily, so you can let go, a little more, or a little less, or not at all. All of it fits here, and as this town continues to exist around you, without effort, without expectation, you may notice that you don't need to decide what happens next. Sleepsville will remain, not waiting, just being, and you are already part of it. Somewhere in Sleepsville, where the streets bend without intention, and the lights never feel urgent, there is a small place that most people don't notice at first. It isn't hidden. It simply doesn't ask to be seen. This is where Mr. Crumplepatch lives, not apart from the town, not above it, just slightly to the side, as if the town itself made room without thinking about it. Mr. Crumplepatch is not responsible for the rain. He doesn't command it. He doesn't decide when it begins or when it ends. What he does is much quieter than that. He takes care of the clouds. Not all of them, just one, a single cloud that never quite learned how to hold itself together. It gathers, then loosens. It drifts, then hesitates. Mr. Crumplepatch never rushes it. He never smooths it out completely. He knows that clouds, like sleep, don't respond well to being corrected. So he sits nearby, sometimes on a low stool, sometimes on the step outside his door, always close enough to notice the smallest change. The cloud hangs above, not heavy, not light, just present. It's uneven, one edge thicker, another almost transparent. Mr. Crumplepatch tends to it the way someone tends to a quiet animal, by staying calm, by not expecting anything. When the first drops fall, they are barely drops at all, more like a suggestion, a faint sound that might be imagined. The rain does not arrive all at once. It never does here. It begins as a pause, a space between sounds, then a soft touch, one place on the roof, then another, slowly, so slowly that no one could say when it truly started. The cloud doesn't open suddenly. It relaxes, and the rain follows that rhythm. Mr. Crumplepatch listens, not closely, just enough. He doesn't count the drops. He doesn't measure the pace. He lets the rain find its own way down. At first, it stays near him, a small area of sound, contained, gentle. The street nearby changes almost imperceptibly. Stone darkens, dust settles, light softens further, as if it were waiting for this exact moment. The rain spreads, not outward, but inward. It sinks into the town before it ever travels across it. Windows respond before people do. The sound gathers along the frames, not loud, layered, breathing. The rhythm changes, but so slowly that it feels continuous. No clear shift, just a gradual deepening. Mr. Crumplepatch adjusts nothing. He doesn't interfere. When the rain becomes steadier, he doesn't step in. When it lightens again, he understands that the cloud is learning learning how to let go. Without collapsing, the rain moves from one street to the next, not in a line, in overlapping patterns. Some places hear it clearly, others only sense it through reflection. Puddles form, then stop forming. They don't grow large. They don't need to. They exist just long enough to hold the sound. By now, most of Sleepsville is aware of the rain, not consciously. No one stops to name it. It becomes part of the background, the way breath becomes part of the body. People inside their homes don't change what they're doing. Some rest more deeply. Some drift closer to sleep without realizing it. The rain doesn't signal anything. It doesn't announce that something is happening. It simply continues. The rhythm shifts again, a little slower, a little wider. Spaces between drops stretch, then shorten. No pattern stays long enough to be followed, and that is why it works. Mr. Crumple Patch remains where he is. He doesn't watch the town. He watches the cloud becoming lighter. With each moment, the rain no longer belongs to him or to the cloud. It belongs to Sleepsville. At some point, listening changes, not abruptly, gently. Words become less noticeable. Meaning loosens. Sound comes forward. The rain is no longer something you are hearing about. It is simply there, present, layered, steady. The mind doesn't need to keep track anymore. The body understands this sound. It recognizes it as something safe. The rain settles into a pace that feels almost familiar, not the same each moment, but close enough to feel continuous. Mr. Crumple Patch doesn't mark the end when the rain begins to thin. He doesn't mark the beginning when it deepens again. He knows there are no edges worth naming. The cloud slowly becomes less defined, not gone, just less involved. The rain now exists on its own, across rooftops, along streets, in the spaces between sounds, and somewhere in that rhythm, without effort, without instruction, listening turns into resting. As the rain continues outside, soft and uninsistent, there is another presence in Sleepsville that answers it without competing. Fire, not large, not dramatic, contained, in a small workshop near the edge of town, where the rain sounds closer, and the streets narrow into quiet paths. Puddle wick glows faintly. It is not a place meant to be noticed. It does not draw people in. It simply remains where it has always been, inside. Barnaby works. He does not speak while he works. There is no reason to. The fire understands him without words. He tends it the way one tends something alive, not with control, with attention. The fire breathes. That is the closest word for it. It does not burn aggressively. It responds. A small sound rises. Pop, then a pause. Snap, then a soft widening of light. Glow. The rhythm repeats, never exactly the same. Pop, snap, glow. Barnaby does not hurry this rhythm. He does not try to make it stronger. He allows it to be what it is. The fire leans toward the wood, not reaching, recognizing it takes what it needs. Slowly, the room is warm, but not heavy. Heat settles, the way rain settles outside, gradually, without demand. The rain taps gently on the roof. The fire answers with a low, steady presence. Neither interrupts the other. They share the space. Barnaby's hands move with almost no sound. Wood placed, ash shifted, nothing wasted, nothing rushed. The fire responds with another quiet cycle. Pop, snap, glow. Each sound is small. Together, they become continuous. The flames are not tall. They curl inward. They stay close to what feeds them, as if they know there is no need to grow larger than necessary. Puddlewick holds this warmth without holding it tightly. The walls absorb it. The floor remembers it. Even when the fire lowers, the room does not forget. Outside, the rain has found its pace. Inside, the fire finds its own. They do not match. They do not need to. Barnaby watches, but not closely. He trusts the fire to communicate when something changes, and it does. Slowly, the flames shorten. Not suddenly. The glow deepens. The sounds soften. Pop becomes rarer. Snap stretches farther apart. Glow remains. Steady. Present. The fire is not fading. It is settling. Becoming quieter without becoming weak. Barnaby adjusts nothing. He knows this stage well. The fire has done what it needed to do. Now it rests. The rain outside continues to fall. The sound layers with the low hum of warmth. At some point, it becomes difficult to tell which sound is closer. Rain, fire, both arrive without effort. The mind does not need to separate them. The body listens differently now, not to meaning, to tone, to rhythm. The glow pulls inward until flame is no longer the focus. What remains is a bed of embers, soft, red, alive, without movement. The heat changes character, less active, more constant. Barnaby remains still. He does not mark this moment. There is no need. The fire knows where it is going. Embers breathe in their own way, slow, almost invisible. The workshop feels held, not enclosed, just supported. Rain continues. Embers continue. Nothing needs attention anymore. Listening no longer feels like listening. It feels like being inside something steady. The fire will last as long as it needs to. Then it will dim further. No signal, no announcement, just a gradual softening into warmth remembered. And somewhere between the sound of rain and the quiet glow of embers, the body recognizes that this is enough. After the fire settles into embers, after warmth becomes something remembered, more than noticed, another sound begins to exist. At the far edge of Sleepsville, it doesn't arrive. It has always been there. The sea rests beyond the town, not close, not distant, just present enough to be heard when everything else grows quiet. At first, it is only a suggestion, a low movement, something that could be mistaken for breath. The waves are far away. They do not repeat clearly. They do not insist. They move as if they are thinking slowly, somewhere near the shoreline, in a house that faces slightly sideways. Lolly Driftwood is already asleep. She sleeps early. She always has. Not because she is tired, because she listens until listening is no longer needed. Her house is small. It doesn't face the sea directly. It leans toward it, as if the walls themselves have learned how to hear. When the waves are distant, the house barely responds, just a faint awareness, a soft receiving. The sound reaches the room. Before it forms into meaning, it passes through corners. It settles along the floor. The wind carries it gently, sliding through open space, through gaps that were never meant to be sealed. The air moves across the room, not cold, not warm, simply moving. The waves remain far, slow, wide. Each one takes its time. There is no clear beginning, no clear end, just a long, even motion. Lolly breathes once, then again, then not at all in a way that needs attention. Her sleep is not deep yet. It doesn't have to be. The sea continues its rhythm without noticing her. Gradually, almost without permission, the sound grows closer, not louder, closer. The space between waves shortens. The shape becomes more familiar. The house leans a little more, not physically, in feeling, as if the walls are adjusting their focus. The wind moves again, this time carrying more texture, salt, distance, movement remembered. The waves begin to roll. Instead of drift, they approach, then pull back. Approach, then pull back. Still slow, still unhurried. The sound fills the room without filling it completely. There is space left for nothing at all. Lolly's breathing evens out, then fades into the background. She has already gone where she needs to go. The house remains awake, listening. The waves are closer now. They are no longer imagined. They arrive clearly, then leave clearly, each one carrying the same calm intention. The wind passes through the room again. This time, it lingers. It touches fabric. It moves hair. It settles. The sound of the sea and the movement of air begin to overlap. One does not interrupt the other. They layer. The house tilts inward, as if to hold the sound gently, without trapping it. The waves continue to approach, not quickly, not all at once. They arrive, like something familiar, returning slowly. The distance disappears, without being crossed. Now the waves are near. They move in steady cycles. In, out, in, out. There is no need to follow them. The body understands this motion without instruction. The mind no longer tries to interpret it. Lolly is fully asleep now. She does not hear the waves anymore. She doesn't need to. They continue without an audience. The room listens on her behalf. The house listens, Sleepsville listens. The waves no longer feel outside. They feel present, not in the ears, in the body. They move through the chest, through the floor, through the space. Where effort used to be, the wind becomes quieter. Not gone, just softer. It no longer travels. It rests. The sound of the sea remains. Steady, close, consistent enough to disappear into itself. There are no words now that need attention, no images to follow, only the movement that repeats without repeating exactly. The waves continue, and nothing else needs to happen. After sound has learned how to repeat itself, after listening no longer needs meaning, movement begins to take over. Not fast, not slow, just consistent, somewhere beyond Sleepsville, where the land stretches without intention. A train is already moving. It has been moving for a long time. No one remembers when it started. No one expects it to stop. Mrs. Thistlegrin is inside. She always is. Not because she travels, because she rests best when something else moves for her. The train does not announce departure. There is no whistle, no schedule posted. It is already in motion by the time you notice it. Clack, clack, clack. The sound is even. Not loud, not quiet, just present enough to be followed and then forgotten. The wheels meet the tracks again and again and again. Clack, clack, clack. Mrs. Thistlegrin sits by the window, but she does not look through it in a way that requires attention. Her gaze rests without focusing. Outside, the scenery repeats. Fields pass, then fields again. A line of trees, another line of trees, low buildings, then open space. Then the same sequence returns. Not exactly the same, but close enough that the difference doesn't matter. The repetition is gentle. It does not ask to be noticed. It does not change quickly. The train does not lean into turns. It does not shake suddenly. Its motion is steady. Forward, forward, forward. Not toward a destination. Not away from one. Just forward. Because that is what it does. Clack, clack, clack. The sound settles into the body before it settles into thought. It moves through the chest, through the shoulders, through places that no longer need to hold tension. Mrs. Thistlegrin does not check the time. There is no reason to. Time does not behave normally. On this train, minutes do not stack. Hours do not progress. Everything stretches into a long, even line with no markers. The windows reflect dim light. Nothing sharp, nothing bright. Just motion passing through reflection. Clack, clack, clack. The train does not slow for stations. If there are stations, they pass unnoticed. If there are stops, they are imagined. The train does not arrive anywhere. It has no final place in mind. It is not a journey. It is a rhythm. The landscape continues to repeat until it becomes texture. Texture replaces image. Image fades into motion. The body begins to sway, almost imperceptibly. Not enough to call it rocking, just enough to feel supported. Forward, forward, forward. The sound does not vary. Clack, clack, clack. The mind tries to follow at first. It notices the sound, then the view, then the idea of travel. Then it lets go. The repetition is too stable to require monitoring. Nothing unexpected happens. Nothing resolves. Nothing concludes. Mrs. Thistlegren's hands rest in her lap. Her breathing aligns without effort, not matching the sound, just existing alongside it. The train does not carry urgency. It does not rush toward morning. It does not flee the night. It simply moves through the same stretch of land, again and again and again. Clack, clack, clack. Eventually, the idea of being inside a train softens. There is only motion, holding awareness gently. There is only rhythm, repeating itself without instruction. The scenery outside no longer registers as separate images. It is pattern now, and pattern becomes calm. The train keeps moving, not to arrive, not to depart, just to move. And that movement is enough. After the steady movement fades into background, after rhythm no longer feels mechanical, the land opens into something softer, not open like a clearing, open like permission beyond the tracks. Where repetition loosens its grip, the forest begins. It does not announce itself. It is already resting. Here, the trees sleep before people do. They have learned how. They stand without effort. They hold their shape without holding tension. Pippin Borlau moves among them so quietly that the forest does not react. He does not step heavily. He does not bring direction with him. He passes through the way air passes through. The wind is already there, very light, not traveling far, not carrying messages, just moving enough to remind leaves that they are allowed to move too. A leaf shifts, another answers, not falling yet, just touching. The forest does not rush night. It does not prepare for sleep. It simply deepens into it. Branches rest before the mind thinks to. Roots settle before the body notices weight. The wind brushes bark without sound, then pauses, then brushes again. There is no pattern to follow, only return. Pippin does not watch. He stands where he is and lets the forest do what it has always done. Trees lean slightly, not toward him, but toward the wind. Leaves respond first. A soft contact, leaf to leaf, leaf to branch. A sound so small, it almost doesn't exist. The forest listens to itself. That is how it sleeps. Time does not move forward here. It settles downward. The canopy darkens, not because light leaves, but because it is no longer needed. The wind continues, still gentle, still minimal, enough to keep sound alive. A leaf releases. It does not fall quickly. It turns once, then again, then touches the ground. No impact, just arrival. Another leaf follows, not immediately, not together. Each one chooses its own moment. The forest does not count them. It does not keep track. The ground receives, without comment, Pippin's presence. becomes indistinguishable from the stillness around him. He is not watching the forest. He is not listening closely. He is allowing sound to take over. The wind moves again. This time, it stays longer. It passes through layers. High leaves whisper. Lower leaves answer. Something unseen moves deeper inside. The forest breathes in multiple directions at once. No single rhythm dominates. Nothing leads. Nothing follows. The sound grows fuller, not louder. It occupies more space without asking for attention. Words begin to feel unnecessary. Descriptions soften. The voice does not need to explain what is happening because the forest is already doing it. Leaves touch, then separate, then touch again. The sound repeats, but never the same way twice. The wind does not insist. It simply continues. Pippin no longer needs to be present. The forest has taken over. Trees rest deeper now. Their stillness is not absence. It is participation. The wind thins slightly, then returns, always returning, always gentle. The ground cools. The air holds. Sound remains. The forest does not fall asleep suddenly. It drifts, slowly, evenly, without edges. Leaves continue to touch. Branches remain. Roots stay hidden. Nothing concludes. Nothing resolves. The forest stays, and the sound of it moves forward, long after the voice no longer needs to. After the forest settles into its own breathing, after leaves no longer need to touch, after wind becomes background, there is a wider quiet waiting beyond all of it. It does not feel far. It feels open, somewhere above Sleepsville, above the rain, above the trees, above the moving train and the resting fire. Space has always been there, not empty, just vast. The Nebulon family lives there, not in a place you could point to, not on a surface. They live inside the idea of space itself. They are not explorers. They are listeners. They float together, not because they have to, but because drifting is easier. When it's shared, there is a sound here, low, even, continuous. No one knows what this sound is. Not the Nebulons, not anyone else. It has no name. It does not announce itself as coming from somewhere specific. It is simply present, like the hum you notice, only after everything else has gone quiet. The sound does not move forward. It does not loop. It does not change direction. It stays. The Nebulan children imagine it differently every time. One thinks it sounds like a giant sleeping. Another thinks it is the universe breathing. Another decides it might be nothing at all. All of them are right. The sound does not correct them. The adults do not explain it. There is nothing to explain. In space, there is no need to understand sound in order to be comforted by it. The rhythm is steady, not slow, not fast, even. It does not measure time. It dissolves it. Moments do not pass here. They expand. The Nebulon family drifts gently, each one held by the same invisible balance. No up, no down, no direction that matters. The sound continues. soft, uninterrupted. It does not react to thought. It does not respond to attention. It remains, whether it is noticed or not. This is why it works. Imagination grows easily here, not the kind that builds stories, but the kind that opens space. Inside the body, the children picture stars as quiet companions. They picture planets as places that are already asleep. They picture darkness, not as absence, but as rest. The adults drift nearby, not guiding, not instructing, just present. The sound does not grow louder. It does not fade. It simply continues at the same depth, a depth that feels as though it has no bottom. Breathing changes here, not noticeably, just enough that it no longer needs to be followed. The body stops waiting for the next moment. There is no next moment. There is only this steady field of sound and space. The Nebulon family does not mark time. They do not count. They do not measure distance. They rest inside continuity. The sound could be coming from everywhere or nowhere. It makes no difference. The children stop imagining eventually, not because they are tired, because imagination has done its work. The sound fills the space where words used to be. Thought becomes unnecessary. The sound does not change. It does not end. It does not begin. It simply remains. Even the idea of drifting softens. There is no movement now, only presence, only the deep, even tone, holding everything gently, without effort. Nothing needs to be completed. Nothing needs to resolve. The sound is not leading anywhere. It is already everywhere. And in that steadiness, rest becomes infinite. After the sound of space stretches into stillness, after depth no longer feels distant, there is a quieter movement waiting below it all, not beneath in distance, beneath in feeling. A river moves through the far edge of Sleepsville. It has always been there. It does not arrive. It does not leave. It continues. Ripley Marin lives beside this river, not facing it directly. His house leans toward it, as if listening is easier. When you don't stand straight, the river does not mind. It has never asked to be observed, only to be allowed to move. The water carries sound, not clearly, not sharply, a low, rounded murmur, gurgle, then another, then space. The sound does not repeat exactly. It circles itself. The river does not hurry. It does not know how. Even when it moves faster, it does not rush. It bends instead. Ripley does not watch the river closely. He knows better than to follow it with attention. The river does not like being followed. It prefers company. He sits inside his house, where the floor slopes gently in the same direction as the water. Nothing here is level. Nothing needs to be. The walls lean. The windows tilt. Even the air seems to drift toward the sound. The river speaks without words. It does not describe itself. It does not tell stories. It only continues to be water, moving around what it finds. Gurgle, pause, a soft collision between current and stone, then release. The rhythm widens, then narrows, never predictable, never surprising. The river accepts everything that enters it. Leaves, light, reflections that last only a moment. Nothing stays long enough to become a burden. Ripley rests where he is. He does not sit upright. He lets his posture follow the house. The house follows the bank. The bank follows the river. And the river follows nothing at all. Time behaves differently here. It does not stretch outward. It flows. Moments do not stack. They slide. The sound of water moves around thought rather than through it. The mind does not need to understand the direction. There is none that matters. The river curves, not to arrive somewhere, but because curves are easier than straight lines. Gurgle, another soft turn, another release. The sound carries the body more than the ears. It moves through the chest, through the lower back, through places that have been holding for a long time. The river does not pull. It invites. It does not say, "Come here." It says, "You can float if you want." Ripley does not imagine floating. He allows the idea to pass through him, the way the water passes stones. Nothing needs to change. The river will continue, whether noticed or not. The house creaks softly, not from age, from settling. Everything here is always settling. The sound of water fills the spaces between thoughts, then replaces them. Gurgle, low, rounded, continuous. The river does not divide moments. It joins them. One flows into the next, without a seam. Ripley's breathing finds the river's pace, without trying, not matching it, moving alongside it. The river does not keep a center. It spreads, it narrows, it deepens, without warning, then shallows again. Nothing is announced. Nothing is explained. The water carries on. The listener begins to drift. Not away, not downward, just along. There is no edge to hold on to. No bank that requires balance. The river holds everything without gripping. Gurgle, a softer sound now, or maybe the same sound, heard differently. It is difficult to tell, and it no longer matters. The house leans a little more, or maybe it always has. The river does not change its pace. It has never needed to. It is already where it needs to be. The sound continues. The body continues. Nothing separates them anymore. There is no instruction, no ending, only movement that does not ask to be followed. The river keeps going, and you are already with it. After drifting no longer feels like drifting, after movement becomes something the body trusts, there is another kind of motion waiting quietly, not carried by water, not carried by wind, carried by repetition. Lady Plushbury drives at night, not to go anywhere, not to return. She drives because motion, when it does not rush, can hold rest better than stillness. Her car moves in wide, looping roads at the edge of Sleepsville, the kind of roads that were never meant to arrive somewhere. They curve, they circle back, they pass the same trees, the same lamps, the same quiet corners. Again and again, the engine hums low, not loud enough to demand attention, not quiet enough to disappear, just present. The wheels turn, The road responds. Motion continues. Lady Plushberry keeps her hands steady on the wheel, not tight, not loose, comfortably there. She does not watch the road closely. She knows it already. It does not surprise her. The car does not accelerate. It does not slow dramatically. It holds a pace that does not need correction. The movement rocks gently, not side to side, forward, then slightly around, then forward again. The motion repeats without asking to be followed. There are no intersections here that require decisions, no turns that matter. Every curve leads into another curve. The lights outside pass at the same distance each time. Glow, fade, glow, fade. Nothing changes suddenly. Nothing resolves. The road does not end. It folds back into itself. Lady Plushberry breathes without thinking about it. Her breathing does not match the motion. It doesn't need to. They coexist. The sound inside the car is layered. Engine, tires, a soft vibration through the seat. Together, they form a rhythm that does not insist. The mind stops checking how long it has been. It stops wondering where the road leads. There is no destination to prepare for. The motion is the purpose. The car continues its loop, passing the same places, with less recognition each time. Familiarity softens detail. Detail fades into pattern. Pattern becomes calm. Lady Plushberry does not think about stopping. Stopping would require intention. This movement does not. It simply continues, because continuation is easy. The road curves again. The car follows, without effort. Nothing pulls. Nothing pushes. The body settles deeper into the seat, not heavy, supported. The outside world does not ask for attention. It passes by at the same distance, the same speed, the same softness. The motion becomes almost circular inside the body, a gentle sway that does not need a name. There is no beginning to this drive. There is no ending, only the middle. And the middle is wide enough to rest inside. The car keeps moving. The road keeps looping. The sound keeps humming. Nothing is expected. Nothing is required. The motion itself does the work. And slowly, without instruction, without decision, awareness settles into the movement and stays there. After motion has become gentle enough to forget, after repetition no longer needs attention, the sky begins to speak again. Not close, not loud, only present at the edge of hearing. Somewhere beyond Sleepsville, beyond the looping roads, beyond the drifting river, a storm exists. It does not arrive suddenly. It has already been there for a long time. Thaddeus Plume knows this storm well. He does not control it. He does not command it. He listens to it. And in listening, he adjusts its edges. The thunder is distant. So distant, it feels more like a reminder than a sound. A low roll, then space. The kind of sound that never surprises the body. The rain follows soon after. Not heavy, not sharp. A steady pattern, finding its place. on roofs, on leaves, on ground that is ready to receive it. The storm is balanced, not calm, not wild, held. The rain falls in a rhythm that does not change quickly. Drop, then another, then the same again. There is no urgency in it. The thunder returns, still far away. It does not interrupt. It rounds the silence gently, like a breath taken slowly. Thaddeus Plume remains still. He does not watch the sky. He feels the distance. That distance is important. It keeps the storm safe. The rain deepens slightly, not suddenly, gradually, enough to be noticed, not enough to overwhelm. The sound layers itself. Rain in front, thunder far behind. Nothing collides. Nothing competes. The storm has a shape, but not a sharp one. It moves without rushing. The rain continues to fall at the same pace. Even as the air thickens, the thunder rolls again, still distant, still soft around the edges. It never cracks. It never breaks the moment. This is a storm that has learned restraint. It knows when to hold back. The rain reaches its fullest state here, not louder, just more complete. Every surface now carries it. Every sound belongs. For a while, this is the center. Not a peak of intensity, but a peak of fullness. Nothing more is added. Nothing needs to be. The storm breathes at this level for a long moment, long enough that the body stops tracking time. Then, almost without noticing, the rain begins to soften, not stopping, just easing. The thunder rolls one last time, even farther away now. It feels less like sound and more like memory. The rain thins, spaces return between drops. The rhythm stays steady, only quieter. The storm does not leave. It dissolves into rain, into distance, into quiet that feels earned. Thaddeus Plume does nothing. There is nothing left to adjust. The storm has completed itself. Rain continues, gentle, even familiar. The sound no longer asks to be followed. It becomes background, then comfort, then something the body recognizes as safe enough to let go inside. The thunder is gone now, or perhaps it was never meant to be held onto. Only the rain remains, steady, soft, unending, and slowly, without instruction, without words, the storm finishes its work. After the storm finishes without leaving, after rain becomes memory more than sound, there is a place in Sleepsville where nothing needs to happen anymore. Not empty, just complete. This is the newer district. It does not announce itself. It does not connect to the old streets in any clear way. You simply notice that you are already inside it. The first building does not glow. It absorbs light. A night library. Its doors are not closed. They are simply not emphasized. Inside, the air holds stillness, the way fabric holds warmth. Shelves extend quietly, not tall, not low. Even books rest without order that needs to be understood. There is no desk, no lamp switched on, only a soft shift of sound, as a page turns somewhere deeper inside. Not hurried, not intentional, just the sound of paper finding the next place to rest. The page does not announce itself. It brushes the air, then settles. Another page follows, not immediately, not in rhythm, as if the book itself is breathing slowly. The sound does not echo. It remains close to where it happens. Nothing in the library responds. Shelves do not creak. The room does not adjust. It is already ready. Time does not move forward here. It opens sideways. Moments sit beside each other, without sequence. Another page turns, softer this time. Then stillness returns, not as silence, but as waiting that does not expect. Leaving the library does not feel like leaving. The space simply widens. Stone replaces wood. Air cools slightly. You are standing in a wide square. The clock tower does not dominate. It does not rise sharply. It blends into the night. The face of the clock is dim, not broken, just uninterested in being precise. Somewhere inside, a mechanism continues. Tick, not loud, not steady enough to count, then another, then distance. The sound does not demand alignment. It does not insist on order. It only confirms that motion can exist without urgency. The square is open. No footsteps cross it. No voices arrive. The tick does not mark seconds. It softens them. Edges blur. Intervals stretch. You could stay here without knowing how long, and time would not notice. Beyond the square, the ground begins to rise, not sharply, not with effort. It becomes a hill, almost without transition. Mist gathers before shape does, a low, slow fog that does not move in one direction. The hill is not meant to be climbed. It is meant to be breathed through. Wind moves gently here, not across, through. It passes without carrying anything. No scent, no temperature change, just motion. The mist responds by shifting slightly, then resting again. The hill has no edge. It fades rather than ends. The wind does not repeat. It returns, each time slightly different, each time familiar enough to be ignored. There is no sound that stands out here, only layers that exist together. A distant tick, now almost imagined, the memory of a page turning somewhere behind, wind moving through mist without touching it. Nothing leads, nothing follows. The district does not ask to be explored. It does not offer a path. It offers space, wide enough for awareness to thin. No one arrives, no one leaves. Nothing begins, nothing concludes. The spaces hold themselves, and that is all they do. Now everything is already happening, not one thing at a time, all of it, together. The rain continues, not near, not far, just present enough to soften edges. The fire no longer shows flame, only warmth, only a memory of glow, resting quietly where it belongs. The sea keeps its slow movement, not reaching, not pulling, only repeating what it has always repeated. Wind moves through spaces, that no longer need to be named, touching nothing directly, yet changing everything gently. The river carries its sound forward, without direction, without intention, without pause. And beneath all of it, around all of it, inside all of it, there is the hum, low, even, uninterrupted. No one is awake enough to listen anymore, and no one needs to. Sleepsville rests, not because it has finished anything, but because nothing is waiting. Houses lean as they always have. Lights stay dim without deciding to turn off. Streets hold their shape without being used. The rain does not fall harder. The fire does not cool suddenly. The waves do not arrive. They continue. Wind passes again, then in a way that is no longer counted. The river curves, then curves again, then does not feel like a curve anymore. Sound layers itself until no single sound stands apart. Rain becomes texture, fire becomes presence, water becomes motion, air becomes space. The hum remains, always the hum. Breathing no longer needs attention. It finds its place inside the larger rhythm, without effort. Thought loosens, not because it stops, but because it is no longer needed to hold anything together. The town does not mark this moment. There is no signal, no closing sound, no final movement. Everything simply rests inside what it has already become. The rain repeats the same soft pattern over and over. Not exactly, but close enough. That difference disappears. The warmth remains steady, not fading, not increasing, just holding. The sea breathes out, then in, then forgets which one came first. Wind moves, rests, moves again, without instruction. The river flows through memory rather than through land. And the hum does not belong to any one place. It is not louder. It is not softer. It is simply there. Sleepsville does not fall asleep. It is already asleep. The sound does not end. It does not resolve. It does not guide toward silence. It blends. It thins. It spreads. The voice returns less often now, not because it leaves, but because it no longer needs to be present. Sentences stretch, then stretch again, then become wide enough to hold nothing at all. Everything that needed to move has found its motion. Everything that needed to rest has already rested. There is no border between listening and sleeping, no line between sound and quiet, only continuity, only repetition that does not ask to be followed. The rain continues, the warmth continues, the waves continue, the wind continues, the river continues, the hum continues, and Sleepsville sleeps. The town is still asleep. It remains that way, without effort. Rain no longer needs to be noticed, to continue. Warmth stays where it is settled. Waves move without arriving. Wind passes without crossing. The river carries on without direction. And the hum does not fade. It widens, it thins, it becomes part of the quiet rather than a sound. Inside it, nothing ends, nothing closes. There is no final moment to mark. Sleep's fill remains as it is, resting, held, uninterrupted. The voice does not leave, it simply stops being needed, and the town is still asleep.